So, if you are just joining us on Facebook Live, I am here with my friend Judy Dove, who I miss so much. We're going to have to see each other in person at some point. and the cast and the creative team of Haiku, which was part of Goodly Frame Theater's Zoom Fest. And Judy, I'm going to turn this over to you, but if anybody has any questions or comments for Judy or the panel, type them into the RDU on Stage Facebook page, Facebook comments, and I will be sure that Judy gets them. So thank you all for doing this. And I will let you start, Judy.
Thank you, Lauren. So we are here this evening with the director, John Swain, and some of our cast members who were a part of our production of Haiku. Now, Polly is not here with us tonight, unfortunately, due to illness, but we do have David and Hiroko and Kyoko, and they'll be talking with us about this play, which was a festival entry in the Goodly Frame Theater Zoom Fest 2020 Series 2, which featured the work of BIPOC theater artists. And I do want to say that Meredith DePaula Stevens is the founding producing artistic director of Goodly Frame Theater in Greensboro, North Carolina. So let's start by first letting everybody introduce themselves. And if you will tell us your name, where you're from, and where you live now. I found that really interesting that in order for us to all get together, John literally reached across the entire country to find the actors for this play. And what your connection is to Japan, and what part you played in Haiku. Right? We can start with John.
Sure. So I'm John Swain, and I am originally from upstate New York, lived in various places around the world, spent a lot of time in Japan. I am a theater person, Japanese theater scholar and researcher, and I got involved in this project because about a year ago I moved to Greensboro and then got connected to Meredith DePaulo Stevens and Goodly Frame Theater. And when she was preparing this project, what she knew about me, she thought, oh, I might be a suitable person to direct Judy's wonderful little play, because I know a lot about Japan, but I filter that through the eyes of an American and who is always an observer and learner about Japan.
Right, thank you, John. And let's go to, I'm just going to go in the order that I'm seeing you, David.
Oh, hi. So I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii. I was born and raised there, went to school there as well. I'm right now on the faculty of the theater department at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. As far as connections to Japan, I got very interested in the traditional performing arts. So all during my time at the University of Hawaii while I was there, was very active in the Asian theater program there. And one of the thing that most intrigued me was the kabuki productions that were done there almost every 2 years or so. So I kind of stuck with that. I actually went to Japan and studied for a year on a Akihito scholarship, and also particularly studying kabuki in particular. So I would say that that's the major theater form in Japan that I'm probably the best at right now, but also studied a great deal of Kyogen theater as well as some no, and a little bit of bunraku as well. I also have a Natori, a professional title from the Onoe School of Classical Japanese Dance. So a lot of connections there.
Wow.
And that's one of my major interests. That's what brought me to the University of Wisconsin, actually, was the specialty in being able to teach the the practical elements of how does a kabuki actor act, or what, how can you use some of these techniques? So yeah, and
It's very precise.
yeah.
Thank you. Hiroko-san.
Hi, my name is Hiroko Yonekura. I'm from Japan, Fukuoka, Japan, and now I'm living in New York. Yeah, I started dancing, like many kind of dancing, like ballet, theater dance, tap dance, all those Western dance. But after I moved to New York, I started learning Japan actually. So that's much about
Thank
it.
you. And are you in a company, or are you a freelance artist?
I'm a freelance freelance. Yeah.
All right, great.
Mm.
And then Kyoko.
Yes, hi. I'm Kyoko Okazaki. I was born and raised in Okayama, Japan. And when I was 15, I decided that I want to study in America. So I went to high school in Michigan. And then after that, I went back home and I was teaching English to little children from 2.5 years old to 15 years old. I had like about 100 students every week. And then after I made some money to come back to America, I came back to Los Angeles. So now I live in Los Angeles, and I play the role of Mizuki. I'm a member of Theater 40 and also the organizer of Bright Productions, which is the Japanese entertainment group. And we do like traditional Japanese play and stuff in English.
You've also been in films, correct?
What's that?
You've been in films as well?
Not really. I mean, indies, yeah, but mainly I have love for big love for theater, and yeah. So
Thank you.
thank you.
So, I guess I wanted to know what inspired you to go into theater? What was either the first show that you saw, or that you were in the moment that you knew that you wanted to do theater? John, we'll start with John.
Oh, well, that's an easy answer. I got involved when I was in 8th grade and my voice was changing and I couldn't sing. I got involved in a community theater summer production of the musical Mame, and was cast as the elevator boy, and I had 2 lines, and that was it. And then I just started doing more and more throughout junior high and high school, and then into college.
At what point did you get interested specifically in Japanese theater?
Well, okay, so that's another more complicated story. I was doing my undergrad at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York, and there was, during my required theater history class that I was taking there from a very knowledgeable gentleman who was actually a scene designer. We spent, in the whole year-long course, we spent one 50-minute lecture on all of Asia, Asian theater, China, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, whatever. 50 minutes, boom, done. Okay, and but something about Japanese theater, particularly, I think at that moment, was kabuki, really intrigued me. So I started to try to learn more about it on my own. I was really lucky because, of course, Cornell University is also in Ithaca, and they have a very excellent Japanese studies program, and they brought in some performers of No, and I got to go over there and see that. And I was an acting major. I have a BFA in acting, and I was like, I was planning to go down to New York and be a professional actor and wait tables and starve. But I went to one of my acting teachers, and I said to him, am I crazy? Is this something? Is Japanese theater something that you think is worth pursuing? And he said to me, well, you know, when I was at Bowling Green State, before I came here to Ithaca, I shared an office with a man named Andrew Tsubaki. And Andrew now teaches at the University of Kansas, and he is an amazing teacher and an amazing practitioner. And I think you should do this. And I actually, one of my classmates at one point, I said something to her about being interested in Japanese theater. And she said, she laughed at me, but I persisted. I went out and visited University of Kansas and met Dr. Tsubaki. And I said, this is where I want to go. I did my master's degree there. And so it was just sort of a fortuitous thing coming out of my, when I've taught undergraduate theater history and literature, I always warn them. I said, you guys be careful. I may teach you something that will change your life. And because it did, this one lecture in a theater history class as an undergrad moved me in a direction I never would have imagined when I was, when I was 19 or.
That's amazing.
20.
David, how about you?
Well, I'll confess that all through elementary school up through high school, I was always interested in taking part in theatrical productions, but never actually took a formal class in all that time. Once I got up to the University of Hawaii, well, no, I take that back. In my senior year of high school, the thing that really changed a lot of focus was seeing a production at the University of Hawaii in English of the kabuki play Skeroku, The Flower of Edo. And I had never seen a theater form like that. And it stuck with me. And when I first got to the University of Hawaii, original plans were to be going into marine biology, but I switched soon after that because within the first 2 years that I was at the university, they were going to be doing another production, a kabuki production, and this time it was the play Narukami. And I went and auditioned and got cast. And I wasn't even, again, not in the department yet, but that was where I met the actor Nakamura Matagoro, who was at that time, and for a long time after that, was one of the major kabuki teachers at the National Theater of Japan training school. And the rest kind of followed because I just was so into all of what I was learning on that production that I just kept on taking all the Asian theater courses that were being offered, because Hawaii at that time had this great program going on where they were bringing master teachers over from Japan, China, India, Indonesia, all of these places. So it was a great time. This is where I spent a whole year studying Kyogen with the great Kyogen actor Nomura Mansaku. And so there were a lot of great beginnings, I would say, that happened there, are connections, because I continued studying as much as I could. And so when I did go to Japan for the year on that scholarship, again, I was able to be studying with a lot of different master teachers while I was there. So it was a big change from marine biology to theater and drama. So
Wow, that's
David,
amazing.
And David, those productions at UH were directed by Jim Brandon, right?
Yes. Although, as I say, usually on most of these productions, we had somebody that, in Narukami's case, it was Matagoro sensei, who was basically leading the charge, so to speak. The big thing about Jim Brandon was that he was working on the English translations of these plays. So that was a huge part of what he was doing as well. And also just his ability to bring all the forces together that made the productions possible. But I mean, Matagoro sensei and two of his deshi or disciples came over when we were working on the production of Kanade Hon Chushingura, which was also performed there. And that program was like the whole year, culminating with a production in the spring. So that was quite an experience as well. But yeah, fortunate that we always have these kind of really expert performing people that came over and were connected with things.
Right. Thank you. Hiroko, how about you?
Hi. I was always thinking about being a comedian or singer and that kind of thing. And when I was in high school, one of my friends we went to see the musical Cats.
Yes.
And I was not interested in musicals, but that one was my first musical. And when I saw it, I got struck by lightning, and I was like, wow, this is the one I need to do. This is why I was born. So
Have you ever been in Cats?
no, I was in the Lion King though.
And you
But they
also
like Cats.
you also played Christmas Eve in Avenue
Yes.
Q. I would
Yes.
love to have seen you in that.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah, I want to
Okay,
do it again.
I'm hearing some wonderful stories about arts education in schools and how they inspired students. I'm loving that.
Yes.
So one of the things that Hiroko also didn't mention earlier was, she was, after leaving Fukuoka in Tokyo, she was a member of the Shiki Theater Company, which was that the company that produced Cats when you saw it, Hiroko?
Yes.
Yeah, so Shiki is known as the Western musical theater production company in Japan, and so it's a pretty big deal to be a member of that company.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, we're so honored to have had you in our haiku. Thank you.
Yes.
And Kyoko, and I read a little bit about your beginning, so I'm eager to hear
So I'm
that.
going to tell you the same episode though. When I was in kindergarten, we played Peach Taro, Momotaro. It's a boy. It's about a story about the boy who was born from the peach, and then everybody wanted to play Peach Taro because which was the main story, main cast and the main role. But only like out of so many students, only 4 of us played the devil. So I was like, yeah, then I can stand out, So I'm gonna play the devil, but sadly we only had like one line, which was like, let's share this treasure together, and all of us, 4 of us, had to say that line at the same time. So what happens? You have to go like, let's share the treasure together. And I didn't like that at all. And then principal came to observe the rehearsal, and she was watching, and she was like, why don't you get excited about it? And I was like, and then without thinking, I just line came out from my mouth, let's share this treasure together, and she was like, that's it, you can do it. But of course, when the performance day comes, we still had to share the line, and I couldn't just say the line the way I want. So I had to go, let's share the treasure together. And I peeked the principal, and then she was like looking a little sad. She was like, and that always stayed in my heart. And plus, also the Shiki, the production, the Shiki that Hiroko was in, that always inspired me. My mother took us to see musicals since we were young. And every time I went to see the musical, I felt like I was in a different world. I felt like this is so unrealistic. This is just so wonderful. Unfortunately, I can't really dance or sing, but I can act, I believe. So I was like, well, I still can't go for it, So I'm so honored to have Hiroko-san on board with us.
We're so fortunate that all of you,
All of us, I mean, all of you,
yeah,
of course, of
it
course.
was an amazing team. You know, and so going into Haiku here, excuse me, the play was written where it really had to have some very specific types of characters. It was set against a very specific historical event, the March 1945 firebombing of Tokyo, and then, you know, what happened after that for this one particular character. And it also involved, you know, her two children who were half Japanese and half Caucasian. And just seeing events and seeing each other through everybody's different eyes, through their perspectives. And so it was very important to me, and thankfully to John. I was so glad, you know, Meredith told me, when she told me that you were going to be directing, I was thrilled because I had known from another show that we worked on together that you had that incredible background. And I thought it was so sweet that, you know, she wanted to make sure that it was okay because you were Caucasian. And, you know, it's like, you know more about Japan than I do. So it was, and I think just having both perspectives was really, really interesting. But in order to do this show, we had to have people who knew Japanese, people who were half Japanese, people with different backgrounds. And as I mentioned before, John reached all the way across the country to find just the perfect cast for this. What did you have to do when you got your part? You know, this is a short play. There's a lot packed into this short play. We move very quickly from one time period to another. What were some of the things that you had to do in order to prepare for your role? I know that in some cases it had to do with language. Hiroko and Kyoko, you translated a part of the play, and I loved your reason for it. There was historical research. There were very specific props and costume pieces, reactions, backgrounds. Everything had to be very specific. What were some of the things that you did in order to prepare for your role in this play, whether it was as a director or as an actor? Why don't I go backwards on this, since I've been starting with John? I'll start with Kyoko this time.
Oh, okay. Well, well, you know, it's not my first time, obviously, to study about wars. I mean, to play the role about the war. But, you know, knowledge is just not enough. I mean, it's still very important for us to learn what happened. And I just feel like it's just never enough, like good enough to express about those characters, like what they were actually going through. You know, I feel like no matter how much we actors try to express how hard it was, I feel like it's just, we can never reach there, I feel like. But it's so important for us to try to learn and know and imagine what they were going through. And this piece was, you know, written by you, and Mizuki actually existed. It was your mother. So I felt like this was a really big responsibility. Like I felt like, you know, I have to express the life of Mizuki, who actually lived and went through all the hard times. So, I mean, you know, what I did was like, yes, I watched the movie and then I wrote down all the things like all the actors does on the script and everything. But what I really did was like, think the way, like imagined the way that Mizuki was thinking, like with how she felt. I just took my time to sink in, like, as Mizuki, and you know what I mean? Like,
But- And you
yeah.
asked some very good questions. I remember you wanting to know, for example, how old was Susie at the time that this was being explained to her, because that would affect, of course, how you reacted.
Mhm.
And I agree with you. I think that we learn about history, and it's important to know about history, but I think it's important to hear, and a lot of people don't have, they didn't have the chance to express it with their own voices. So I think it's very important to be able to help them tell their stories, so that you don't just know that something happened, but you understand the effect of it. And I've always believed that history is so important, because if you when you read history, you see about so many things that just happen again and again. Why? You would think that if this horrible thing happened, why would it happen again? Did we not learn from it? And I think about the way the Cherokees were treated, by the American government. I think about, other parts of World War II with, Auschwitz and the other camps. And, there's so many stories. Every individual person has a story. They didn't get to finish their stories or to tell them. And I think that for me, that's probably the thing that made me really attach myself to theater, because it was a way to do something really good with in a way that I could. Thank you. Hiroko, how about you?
So I played Chiyoko, Mizuki's mom, and she didn't. I didn't have that long scene, but it was very important scene to show what Japanese family is like, very strict, and how they feel after the war. And yes, so I researched watching some movies, and then, but the best thing that worked me was, as a character, was when I was like elementary school student, I lived in a really old house with my family and my grandparents, and the smell of that time kind of helped me, like the relationship with my grandparents, and the stories that I heard from my mom, that she had the relationship with those in-laws and her families, and that because my mom was born during the war, a little after the war, so she yes, I could get the smell of the war just a little bit, so I enhanced that memory and then used it.
Thank you. David?
Well, in some ways, I think, call it fate or kismet or whatever. When John asked me to be a part of the play, and he sent along a copy of the script, I was immediately struck by how much of this material basically resonated with a lot of things. Being that I am of mixed parentage, specifically a lot of the things that were going on with the other characters not being able to figure out who the brother and sister are, sort of thing, resonates very strongly because when I was about 10, maybe 11, my father brought the family over to Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, because he was going after a PhD, and having to attend schools there. I remember the first period that we were there, I was literally being attacked by other people in the school who basically considered it to me, well, they're, excuse the epithet that I'm going to use here, but it's the Jap kid, it's the Jap kid. Yeah. And so there were quite a bit of being pelted with snowballs and other things, which I knew very little about coming from Hawaii at that point. So that was one thing. I can remember very vividly, I had a paper out at one time that was servicing a lot of the dormitory areas in the University of Illinois campus. And basically, they couldn't put, I was either the Eskimo kid or something else. So there was that. Having had the opportunity to travel a lot in Japan, my father's family came basically from the Hiroshima area. So having the chance to visit the museum there, the atom bomb museum, it's a very sobering experience. The other thing that happened just, maybe 2-3 years ago, I was in Tokyo and happened to stumble across a area where there was kind of this little temple someplace, and to my consternation, I discovered that this is one of the places where I guess they had buried, I guess, a lot of the ashes and remains of people that were burned in the fire in Tokyo at that time. And there was also a small little museum that I happened to stumble across that I went into, and there was a whole exhibit about what happened during the firebombing. So all of these things are very much resonating in me when I read the script for the first time. So of course I said yes. So there is that. I think the only things that I had to really, as an actor, kind of figure out a little bit more was I was very curious about the mother's character, as far as the two marriages that she went through, I guess, with the first serviceman and then the second marriage, which then produces the 2 kids. So there were things like that I was very curious about. Yeah. So anyway, that's my.
That's great. Thank you. And those are all things that, when you write a play, it's not finished, and it continues to grow. And all of the things, the questions that you pose to me, and, help me to see what I need to clarify and, what else I need to do with it. So you are all a part of that story, and it's wonderful. John, how about you? You had a lot of choices to make, a lot of, you were very busy.
Well, when in terms of what I had to do to prepare to direct this play, it's in a lot of ways it's very complex because I don't know, like David, although I am not Japanese, I have no Japanese heritage that I know of whatsoever in me. My experience and study of Japan and my interests, there were so many things in this play that I empathized with and that I found to resonate with many of my um, my scholarly interests as well as my artistic interests, and from um, the Tokyo fire bombings to the what happened to many women after the war, the kinds of experiences they had in Japan under the U.S. occupation, and then also the experiences that they had in as war brides coming to the United States. One of the things that I found really interesting about being at the University of Kansas, which is in Lawrence, Kansas, is that area of the United States, central, the Midwest, has a very large, relatively large population of Japanese Americans, and that is because many of the servicemen who married Japanese women at the end of the war were sent back to Fort Hays, Kansas, and kind of like congregated there. And it was part of the military rationale, as I understand it, was that these women wouldn't fit into the rest of American society, so they had to kind of like keep them all together. so they assigned all of their husbands to this one place, and the number of people with Japanese heritage grew up there. There was actually, there was, I think they closed it now, but there was a Japanese consulate in Kansas City, Missouri, because there were so many Japanese Americans there. And when I was in Lawrence at the University of Kansas, I, through Dr. Tsubaki and my study, I met a lot of these people. One of them was an artist named Roger Shimomura, who he spent time in one of the Japanese, the American concentration camps, the Japanese internment camps after World War II, and he created paintings and other works of art about that. And somehow in my upbringing, and I blame my parents for this, they made me very aware of the difficulties that people who were not like myself had in the world. And this part of that led me in my academic research about Japanese theater, and although I started out interested in traditional forms, I got more interested in contemporary Japanese theater, and I began to do research about people in Japan who were making theater and writing theater about experiences as on the margins of Japanese society. And so all of these things are like feeding in and resonating with me. And I haven't been to the place that David talked about, but I have been to the Museum of Tokyo, the Museum of Edo, which is in Tokyo. And one of the things that was really, really striking for me in that museum is that they have a section on Tokyo during the war, and part of that includes some structural ruins, I guess, structural ruins of buildings that were in the Tokyo fire bombings. And these are huge I-beams that are melted, that are twisted and simply wilting like spaghetti from the heat of those bombings. And so all of these things just like resonated with me, and I thought, if there's some way I can give a greater sense of meaning to that. And so as I said at the very beginning, the title of the play is about haiku, and the haiku that are quoted, that are spoken in the play, create these moments of pause that I see as a kind of element of Japanese aesthetics, which has to do with taking time, making space, time and space to let things percolate or gel or sink into the mind of the person perceiving it. And so that's really, I took all these other crazy influences that I had and tried to distill them down to those moments, and and let the actors go with their great stuff. So yeah.
One of the things that you did, and I absolutely loved, was, and I hope that, excuse me, I hope that anyone who has not had a chance to see this will go to the Goodly Frame Theater Facebook page or YouTube channel and watch the show. It's very short, but you did some really interesting things with incorporating Japanese art, and there was a art that was that inspired you from a poem that another Japanese poet had written. And these were all things that I felt helped to pull a lot together so that we weren't just watching a play about people trying to resolve their conflicts, but people who were trying to resolve conflicts that had come about partly as a result of the time period in which they lived, and then the war, the effects of the war. And, so there was one picture in particular. I remember when we were looking at backgrounds, and Kyoko had come up with a number of really great backgrounds. And Lauren, if you could put up the pictures that we were talking about earlier. This is when Kyoko's character was talking about what the war was like. The daughter asked the mother, what was it like during the war? And Kyoko's character, Mizuki, was trying to relay that information to the child in a way that the child could understand. So we have these two backgrounds, and I remember her asking which one you wanted, and you chose the one on the left, which is the one you can see she is against. And I was just always curious why you chose that one as opposed to the other one.
Well, I think one of the things that goes through my mind, went through my mind in trying to deal with these images of the war and the fire bombings, is that trauma is trauma for everyone, and it's an individual thing, and you can't really talk about comparative traumas. It is human, and whether whatever you went through is your experience. It's something that will always be part of you, part of the individual, and so I wanted to give some kind of concrete substance to that, the idea of trauma. So the image that's on the right is, to me, it could almost be a forest fire. It could be it's too generalized, and I wanted to give it some. I wanted to use something that was that reflected more of an actual human existence in those fires, and so the image of buildings and flames rising up, which I don't know how easy that is to see, but at the same time, with the character of Mizuki, and part of the struggle I had with finding images and so forth is, I was trying to find something that connected her to the sky, and this image on the left, of course, has the sky there, and that seemed to work. I felt was a better choice.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, you sort of kind of completed this cycle that we talked about the Kaguyahime and the princess who came from the moon, and there was this whole night sky. There was a lot of symbolism there, I thought. So that was just very interesting to me. I love all of your choices, and it's just always fascinating to me to hear why directors make certain choices. But thank you for that. Thank you, Lauren. Something that I wanted to bring up too, Hiroko and Kyoko, when you were doing the scene where where Mizuki tells Chiyoko that she is going to leave with an American soldier, that was a wonderful scene that you two translated into Japanese, which I thought really took us back into the time period, because they would not have been speaking English. And Meredith, of course, Meredith DePaula-Stevens did a wonderful job with the subtitles for that. And something I wanted to ask you, you are both young, you've grown up, with the what I call the younger generation, and the way that young people behave now towards their elders is very different from the way they used to. And what were some of the things that you had to keep in mind when the two of you had this conversation between a mother and daughter that would have been back in the 50s, really, in Japan, which makes a big difference?
Well, probably the first is the language, I mean, the way we talk, we have this polite way, respect, a way to, to show our respect to older people, or so. Yeah, when we discussed how we're gonna translate, Hiroko-san came up with a wonderful translation, and then I was so inspired by it, and I went along with it. So I kind of adjusted. She provided her lines, and then I adjusted so that we can both in. I mean, you know what I mean. So yeah. So yeah, language and how.
That's one of those cases where you can't just translate the language. You really have to know the hows and whys behind it. Like you said, the way that, the politeness factor. I noticed even in the way that you interacted with her was very different than the way a teenager or a young person would interact with their mom today. When you were asking her, you bowed when you said please. I mean, things that really brought us back into that old world Japanese time. And I don't know if it's still true today, but how it's done. But I thought that was just such a beautiful moment that the two of you created between those two characters in such an unhappy incident. But that was wonderful. So John and I had a very brief conversation over email. And one of the things that we were talking about was each one of you has had very different experiences in theater. Can you talk about a career achievement or a career frustration in relationship to your experiences in theater that perhaps stemmed from your being Asian? And I will say, for example, when I was younger, and when I was younger, I looked much more Japanese than I do now. But I would go to auditions, and sometimes I would be told that I looked too Asian to have lived in this area where the setting was, or I didn't look Asian enough, or I didn't look all American. And sometimes, I mean, it's true that you're being cast for certain parts in certain plays. But I was just wondering if you ever felt stereotyped, or if you felt that it was really all part of the casting, you know, for certain types of roles?
I always feel like I'm Japanese, but I'm different. So the very beginning of my career in America, it was tough. Like I couldn't, I didn't have any good self-esteem or anything. Like I cannot find anything good in me. But now it's changing. I accept myself, so I feel better now. But I still have like for certain roles, I feel like I have to. I feel like I'm Asian. So, but I try to forget about it.
Does anybody else want to add?
Well, first of all, I feel like the roles that are there in America for Asian, let's say for Japanese, because I'm Japanese, I feel like they portray like as a mean character, or either dumb character, or shy character, or like, you know, they want to kind of put us in a certain type. I mean, so I feel like, I think I remember, Judy, like when you were talking about when you wrote this script, you felt like you could maybe provide the opportunity for us to play, you know, like, because like, you know, for half Japanese, half American people, or Japanese people, like we don't really have opportunity. Like, didn't you say something like that? You know, I told you like I'm an organizer of the Bright Productions, and what we do is like we have original script, and then I mean we have non-Japanese actors as well, but mainly it's written for Japanese people, and so that they have opportunity to play the roles that is not mean or just dumb or something like that, you know. So I think it's important for us to show we are not just this certain type, you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have to say that when I finally moved to the mainland, specifically the San Francisco, Los Angeles area, where I lived in both cities for a number of years, I would run into situations where you're being sent out by an agent to audition, say for I'm talking specifically now about a TV or movie or a commercial thing that's going on. And what I was running into a lot was that, especially for people that are of mixed ethnic backgrounds, is that a lot of times what you're going to get is, well, you did a very good audition, but you just don't look Asian enough. Okay, so I was running into that a lot. I would always sort of book thing. Well, I would get it to the point where, you know, the producers and everybody are in the room considering you, and then at the last moment, again, it comes out, well, we just felt he doesn't look Asian enough. Then, of course, I remember another conversation that I did have with one particular agent who was suggesting, well, you know, maybe you should dye your hair, or, you know, just try to pull more to the Asian side rather than how you look. So that was another one. Obviously, I think some of the roles that you were consistently going out for where there's a stereotype that is going on. You know, you're either playing the scientist, sort of the evil business person, the food delivery guy, things like that. So there are definitely things that are stereotypical that were going on at the time. So what with everything that's going on right now, hopefully we see a change. Obviously there are some very much more respected and seasoned Asian actors that are, have taken stands and are out there doing things. I think another thing that we tend to run into, and this is something that I don't know whether there's any real answer to, I was involved with the production of the stage production of The Woman Warrior that was produced over at the Berkeley Rep when it first started. It then toured around for a while to various other theater groups. Early on, I know that there was, it was a huge cast. There was a great deal. It was one of the few times that the cast is pretty much all Asian Asian actors, sort of thing. And so, but one of the things that I thought very interesting that was coming out of that was that there was sort of this interesting thing that was going on with, again, people saying, well, you've got a lot of people that really aren't Chinese in this production. Why aren't you casting this thing totally with Chinese people? So that's something that always has bothered me a little bit. I think with the roles being so incredibly few with these projects sometimes, this is a case where I think I don't know whether being so conscious of exactly what kind of Asian you are, I just applaud the fact that people are being able to find work. It doesn't matter which Asian American you are at this point. But that's, here we go. That's another thing that's sort of an inter-community thing that sometimes happens, which I feel isn't in the best interest of the group per se, but that's my opinion. I'm trying to think what other situations that we would run into. I find this more with that trying to stick you into a specific type, happening more with television movies or commercials rather than stage productions. The actual live stage productions, in my mind, the casting people seem to be a little bit more open-minded, where they seem to have some broader thoughts about the type of casting that goes on. Anyway, yeah.
Thank you. Lauren, do I have time for one more question? I'll just go ahead and ask it. I was curious if there is a particular role that you have always wanted to play that is not necessarily an Asian role. Like, have you, is there a non-Asian role in some show that you have always wanted to play?
Oh boy.
Well,
no holds barred. If there were no restrictions on, what anyone looked like, and just based on what you can do.
I have one role. One role from what is that? All About Eve.
Okay.
Yeah, the older actress. Yeah,
All right.
I want to play that role.
David or Kyoko, do you have one?
Bet you'd be great here.
well, I can't really come up with one right now, so probably I don't. But I have auditioned for the role that was non-Japanese role, and then I was able to book it. I was very thankful. My name was Karen. Then, yeah, I had to change my background. The writer had to change the background of the character so that the audience is gonna go, wait a minute, isn't she Japanese? Because I didn't want that to happen. I mean, I was like, well, I can be Japanese and I could be named Karen and I could have a white husband and I can be teaching English even though my English isn't perfect. I can still teach.
Mhm.
And then, but then the reviewer, they were pretty tough on me because this theater company, it's been there for more than 50 years and it's in Beverly Hills. So most of the actors are white people. Most of the audiences are white people and reviewers are white people. So it's on live. But anyway. So like, I felt like there was a little, I don't know, those reviewers being a little tough on other ethnicity. I felt like that, because they are not used to having them in the theater company. So because I was probably the first Japanese actress in that production. So yeah, I felt like, well, why can't people just accept the person as it is?
Yeah.
I can have this Asian background, but I can just be there as that character. I felt like it could work, but it didn't. So the writer.
I was going to say maybe some of this has to do with what is being written. The roles that are being written are so very specific as to where a Japanese person would be placed. Maybe.
Well, no, probably it was. Oh, I don't. When I auditioned, I was kind of sure, like, well, this can be anybody. This doesn't have to be white person. So I don't know.
Yeah, what I mean is, I think we need more roles like that.
More
Yeah.
roles. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah.
How about you, David?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, let's see. As far as Western theater, probably the role of Prospero would be something that I would be very much would like to play sometime. But I'm thinking on the other side, there's a kabuki role that I would love to have a chance to play sometime, but I don't know. We'll see. Would be Kumagai Naozane from yeah. There's a kabuki play that he's a very major character in. So that having played Benkei and having played Yuranosuke in Kanade Hon Chishigura, I think that would be the next big kabuki role that I would like to one day have a chance to do. But there it is. Yeah.
Well, let me ask one last question then. If all of you could give advice to somebody, a young Asian or part Asian actor starting out, what would you say to them?
You mean
Any
young
encouragement
actors?
or- I'm sorry?
I mean, for young actors who are from Japan, or it could be anybody like Asian, just Asian?
Yes, yeah. Whether they're from Japan or China or Korea, somebody who is who looks different from, and it doesn't. We're talking specifically about Asian actors in this conversation, but really, it doesn't have to be. Any young person who doesn't necessarily look like everybody else in their community, whatever that community happens to look like, and they want to be an actor, but they're not sure that they can get roles because they don't seem to fit the part. What's some advice that you might give to somebody?
Well, definitely writing and creating your own story is one thing, right? I think it's one of the great opportunity for them to shine. Another thing is, I don't want to sound like giving it up, but I feel like just just doing the best we can. And then when the role is yours, when it meant to be your role, it comes to you. And so like, don't get disappointed every time, because you're gonna be punched in your face like more than you want. So just do the best, and when you get the role, you enjoy and do your best. But when you don't, just don't be so sad. It's okay.
Thank you.
Can I say, I just
Yeah.
want to put in a plug for Kyoko's, the
Yeah.
company she's working with, Burai Productions. I mean, that's how I got to know Kyoko, and
It was a little different the production, but it's okay. It's Iki company, and that's a different. It's a different
that's right.
production.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But what those companies are doing is they're really creating opportunities for Japanese actors with Japanese backgrounds specifically, but I think also other Asians to find work and to create stuff that's by them and for them, and there are a lot of actors there in the LA area, and I think it's one thing that they are doing for themselves, and that's a great project that you guys are working on.
Thank you. I mean, we've had Korean American in the past, and the current production we have 2 Chinese American actors as well. And then I appreciate that how much they try to learn our culture, because how they, how we walk and talk, it's different. It's samurai, it's different, and then it's something that you have to learn. So they're doing their best to learn, and then it's been working great. So hopefully after this Corona thing is over, we can come back and bring it to the stage. Yeah.
Yoko or David or John?
Yeah.
And sorry, if my computer's shaking, my cat is trying to get my attention. So.
I have something to say. I think just follow your heart. And the one thing I learned, keep auditioning for many productions. Like Kyoko-san said, like, just do my best. And I'm not the one to choose anything. Like, if they like me, the role will come to you. And and you could, maybe you cannot get the role for that, at that time, but in the future, maybe they might cast you, or maybe you can give them different how can I say, different image of the we can create this play, we don't need to stick with this character with white people, black people. We can, it might be open to anybody. So we can change the people's first imagination, opinion. So
great.
Just do my best.
Study, study, study. Work on your voice, work on your movement. Because of where we are as a certain ethnicity or whatever, you have to be the best you can be. Don't do things half-assed. Okay, you got to be putting yourself out there constantly. If it's truly in your heart that you want to be an actor, then you have to keep on doing these things. The other thing I would say is look around your area. If you're living in one of the major cities in this country, there's a very good chance that there is an Asian American centered theater group somewhere in that city. West Coast, and I'm sorry if I leave people out, but the LA area, you've got East West Players. New York City, you've got Pan Asian Theater Company. There's again, I haven't been keeping up on a lot of these things, but there's a number of companies in New York that are basically being run by Asian American people. And you should be supporting those theaters and make yourself available, okay? You may not be getting paid greatly, but I think it's important to support the companies that are out there, okay? Yeah, study. Find, I don't know, I this is a disturbing thing that I find with, find some kind of really classical type of theater work. A lot of Asian Americans, for some reason, don't seem to be aware of the great traditions that are coming from the different countries, whether it's Japan, China, Korea, or wherever. I think people should be looking into their background and just being aware of the great theater traditions that are out there. Be aware of that. But at the same time, I think there's something to be said about really learning a truly classical form to help ground you. All right. And that can be dance or whatever, right? But find something that grounds you. Yeah, I think that's my soapbox speech for tonight.
Thank you, David. John?
Well, you know, I can only second everything that everybody else has said. You know, in terms of, I think it's important to study. I think it's important to stick to your guns and be certain of who you are, and to keep pushing, and to try to create your own opportunities. And you know, as a that probably applies to anyone who wants to work in any form of the arts at all. But I think it's I think that there's so much talent that doesn't get tapped in this country, that doesn't get utilized enough. And you know, being able to give an opportunity, to be part of an opportunity for some people was really kind of cool for me. I'm glad to have this opportunity to be part of that.
Well, I am so grateful to all of you. And Polly, we certainly wish that you were with us tonight.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
thank you so much. Yes, this is for Polly.
Polly, okay.
And if any of you, have not had a chance to watch this production, Haiku, you can go to the Goodly Frame Theater Company's Facebook page or YouTube channel and find it. It is a part of the series 2, episode 3. It's the third one in that particular episode. Thank you all. Thank you, Lauren and RDU on stage.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do want to put a plug just for next week, Wednesday, our Torn series, which is Theater on Racist Negativity, is going to be on Wednesday night instead of Thursday night, because I have a huge surprise for the Torn panel that night, and everybody will have to tune in to find out what it is. So I'm really excited about it, though. So I will see everyone Wednesday night. Thank you so much, Judy.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right. Bye-bye, John. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you
Yes,
again.
Mimisai.
Thank you guys. Oyasumi nasai.
Bye.